My carefully constructed world, a life I had meticulously planned with Rachel, my girlfriend of 5 years, shattered in an instant. We had been inseparable since college, building a future brick by brick. A good job, a comfortable apartment, and a love that felt unshakable, it was all there. Then came the confession, a brutal blow that knocked the wind out of me. Rachel had been cheating, and not just with anyone, but with my own brother, Jack. The memory of that day is seared into my mind. We were curled up on the couch, lost in a movie when she abruptly paused it. "I have to tell you something," she said, her voice trembling. I braced myself for a minor revelation, perhaps a bad day at work, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the words that followed. She admitted to a year-long affair with Jack. The air left my lungs, it felt like a physical punch to the gut. My mind went blank, then raced with a whirlwind of disbelief, anger, and profound sorrow. I simply stared at the lifeless television screen, unable to process the betrayal. In a disoriented haze, I began to pack. Not my things, but theirs, Rachel's and Jack's, the belongings they had left at my apartment. Each item I touched felt like a searing reminder of their deception. I mechanically loaded them into my car and drove to a storage unit, my actions fueled by a primal need to purge their presence from my space. The world outside felt hazy, unreal, as if I were moving through a dream. From there, I drove to my parents' house, arriving just in time for our usual Sunday dinner. The moment I walked in, I could feel the pretense of normalcy weighing heavily. I dropped the bombshell without preamble, my voice flat, devoid of emotion as I recounted Rachel's infidelity and my brother's shocking betrayal. The jovial atmosphere vanished, replaced by an eerie silence. My family sat stunned, their faces a mixture of disbelief and shock. The aftermath was nothing short of chaotic. My family, once a pillar of support, became a battleground of conflicting emotions and divided loyalties. Rachel and Jack inexplicably found refuge at my parents' house. They seemed to operate under the bizarre delusion that I was the one in the wrong, that I should simply forgive and forget. Their pleas for reconciliation felt like an assault on my already wounded psyche. It was in those moments of their misplaced righteousness that a bitter truth dawned on me. I had, in many ways, enabled my brother's irresponsible behavior for years. This realization, though painful, became a catalyst. It was time I decided to prioritize myself, to reclaim my own well-being. Weeks later, Emma sent a brief text. "I am sorry you are hurting, Dad. This has been hard on all of us. Maybe we can talk when things calm down." There was no mention of the money, no real apology, just distance. I consulted a lawyer about getting my money back. He was blunt: no contract, no conditions, no chance. It was a gift. Legally, courts do not undo generosity no matter how profound the betrayal. Rebuilding my life. I turned the page. I sold the house, bought a small townhome, and began rebuilding my savings. I lived quietly, worked, read, and took long walks. 3 years passed. Then last month my phone rang. It was Rachel. Colin had dumped her, his investments had tanked, and the luxury lifestyle was gone. Rachel was unemployed and homeless. Emma, laid off after a merger, was barely keeping up with her mortgage. They were a tag team asking for financial help. I listened politely and said I would consider it. Then I invited them to meet me at a neutral cafe. I arrived early. When Rachel and Emma walked in, Rachel looked tired, almost embarrassed. Emma seemed nervous. Before they could speak, I laid it all out. My tone was calm, clear, and final. I reminded Rachel that she walked out of a 26-year marriage for a man who promised her more. She burned the bridge when she left, not just with me but with the life we built. Her choices had consequences. Then I turned to Emma. Her betrayal went deeper. She did not just stand by while her mother dismantled our family. She knowingly took my life savings, smiling and playing the grateful daughter while knowing the knife was already in my back. I reminded her of her silence, her hiding, her insincere text message, and her complete lack of remorse. I told them both calmly but firmly, "You came here thinking you could reopen a door you nailed shut, but that door no longer exists. I am not your safety net. I am not your bailout plan. I am not the same man you left in pieces." They sat in stunned silence. Rachel opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand. "I am done. This meeting is the last act of a story you ended. Goodbye." I walked out of the cafe and into the early evening sun. For the first time in years, I felt light, unburdened. Something had finally clicked. I did not owe them anything. Not explanations, not comfort, and certainly not money. They had made their choices and I had finally made mine. I did not look back. Moving forward, Over the next few days I expected another message. A guilt trip or rant, maybe even a desperate apology. But none came. Rachel stayed silent and so did Emma. Perhaps they were shocked that I did not crumble, that the man they had underestimated, the quiet, predictable provider, had become someone who could say no with conviction. It still hurts, especially with Emma. A father never stops hoping. But hope, I have learned, can be a cruel drug when it is tied to people who only see you as a source. I gave myself permission to stop waiting for her to come back. 6 months later, my life began to feel truly mine again. I joined a hiking group, took weekend road trips, and read more books than I had in the last decade. I reconnected with old friends, one of whom, Lauren, had recently gone through a divorce herself. We got dinner, then coffee, then long walks. Her companionship was calm, respectful, and sincere. She never asked about my past unless I offered it, and when I told her about Rachel and Emma, she simply listened. That kind of empathy is rare and healing. One morning I found an envelope in my mailbox. There was no stamp, no return address. It was a letter from Emma. The handwriting was familiar, but the words were not. Dad, you do not have to read this. I know you might not even open it, but I needed to say something without asking for anything. You were right at the cafe about all of it. I made a terrible, selfish choice. I convinced myself I was doing the right thing because I did not want to lose Mom, but I ended up losing you instead. I have thought about calling 100 times, but shame kept me quiet, and pride and fear. I do not deserve forgiveness. I do not expect it. I just wanted you to know I am sorry for everything. For the silence, for the betrayal, for taking your help and using it like it meant nothing. You did not deserve that. I have started seeing a therapist. I have cut ties with Mom. Things with her, they were not what I thought. She is still blaming everyone but herself. I am not writing this to throw her under the bus, just to say I finally see it clearly. If you ever want to talk, I would be grateful, but if not, I understand. Love, Emma. I read it 3 times, my hands shook. Was it real? Another performance? I did not know, and for the first time I did not rush to decide. I set it aside, took a deep breath, and walked out the door to live my life. Peace. It has been nearly 4 years since Rachel left. Lauren and I are still together, slow and steady. We make each other laugh, we listen. There is no drama, no manipulation, just peace. Emma and I have spoken once briefly over coffee. I told her I appreciated the letter and hoped she was doing better. She cried. I did not. She did not ask for money and I did not offer it. We have not spoken since, but the door is no longer locked, just closed gently. People will tell you that time heals, but that is only half true. Time helps, but clarity heals. Boundaries heal. Choosing yourself after years of being chosen last heals. Forgiveness is not always about letting others back in, sometimes it is just about letting yourself move forward. Rachel thought I would be her backup plan. Emma thought I would always be her safety net. But in the end, I was just a man who learned that love without respect is a trap, and trust once shattered is not something you owe someone just because they share your blood. I gave them everything, and now finally I give myself peace.